Hey there, Root 4 students, and welcome to your Vocabulary Companion. Today we're going to jump right into the language of change. You know, all the words we need to talk about how ideas get started, how they spread, and how they end up transforming the entire world. Let's get to it.
All right, so where does any big change start? Well, it begins with an idea, right? A plan. So let's kick things off with the words we use for that very first spark of creation.
Okay, first up, we have the verb devise. When you devise something, you're not just thinking about it, you're actually inventing or planning a whole new way to do it. It's got this real sense of cleverness to it, like a brilliant engineer designing a new machine. And hey, listen for its friends. You'll almost always hear it as devise a plan or devise a strategy. They kind of stick together.
In this image, it's a perfect example. See, this person isn't just mindlessly following a manual. No, they're using their smarts, their creativity, to invent a whole new system to get the job done. That is the heart of what devise really means.
So you've devised a brilliant plan. What's next? Well, a plan is useless without some real commitment, right? And that's where our next verb, devote, comes in. When you devote yourself to something, you are all in. You're giving it a huge chunk of your time, your energy, your resources. The noun is devotion, and the adjective is devoted. You know, like this student right here, totally devoted to their studies.
Okay, so we have an idea and we have commitment. Now what happens? The idea starts to travel. It begins to spread. So in this next part, we're going to dig into the words that describe exactly how ideas move, how they grab hold, and how they end up changing, well, everything. First on our list for this section is the noun diffusion. This is the big picture word. It's all about how something spreads far and wide, across huge areas, think countries, or even the whole planet, like the diffusion of new technology, right? It starts in one place and then spreads everywhere. And if you want the verb form, that's diffuse. Okay, so if diffusion is spreading across a map, our next word, the verb permeate, is about soaking into the map. When an idea permeates a culture, it doesn't just sit on the surface. It gets into every little nook and cranny. It influences everything. I love this analogy. Think about the smell of fresh coffee. It doesn't just stay in the kitchen, it permeates the whole house. It's that same idea, but for influence.
So, what's the end result when an idea has totally permeated a society? Well, it becomes pervasive. This is an adjective, and it means that thing is just everywhere. You can't escape it. The influence of the internet? Absolutely pervasive. It's in our work, our friendships, our news, you name it. And the noun for this state of being is pervasiveness. All right, and this is where it all comes together. This is the key takeaway for these three words. Think of it like a journey. Diffusion is the first step, the big external spread. Then permeate is the next step, that deep internal soaking in process. And finally, pervasive is the destination, the final state where it's just everywhere. See how one leads right into the next? It's a great little sequence.
Now, some ideas don't just spread quietly. Oh no. They show up and flip the whole table over. For that, we have the perfect adjective, disruptive. A disruptive technology doesn't just make things a little better. It totally changes the game, often making the old way obsolete. I mean, think about what streaming services did to video rental stores. That wasn't just a change, that was a disruption.
So, as you can imagine, this kind of massive, disruptive change, it's messy. It's never a straight line. It creates brand new problems, new opportunities, and all sorts of outcomes. And that brings us perfectly to our next batch of words, which help us talk about this complex fallout. Okay. So when a new situation creates a problem or a risk, we use the verb pose. A new AI technology might pose a threat to certain jobs, for example. It's basically a more formal way of saying it creates or presents a problem that we now have to deal with.
Now, this is super important, so lean in for this one.
The verb pose is kind of needy. It almost never shows up to the party alone. It's almost always with a partner word. You'll hear pose a threat, pose a challenge, pose a risk. Learning these phrases, these collocations, is the secret to sounding really natural when you use this word.
So if something poses a problem, what do we want to do? We want to alleviate it. To alleviate something, and this is a verb, means to make a bad situation less severe. Notice I said less severe, not get rid of it completely. You can alleviate pain. You can alleviate poverty. It's all about reducing the negative impact. The noun form is alleviation.
And if you ever forget what alleviate means, just picture this ice pack. It's not a magic cure for the headache, right? But it sure helps. It makes the pain less intense. It alleviates the symptom. That's it. That's the word in a single image.
Okay, so when there's big change, there are always winners and losers. It's like a tale of two fates. On one side, you have thriving industries. These are the ones that are growing, successful, and doing amazingly well. But on the other side of the coin, that same change can make old industries obsolete. And obsolete just means totally outdated, no longer useful. Think flip phones. They're completely obsolete.
So how do you connect those two things? How does something become obsolete? Well, that's where the verb render comes in. This is such a great word for cause and effect. It just means to cause something to be in a certain state. So, flip phones didn't just fade away on their own. The invention of smartphones rendered them obsolete. See? It's that direct link.
So, we've talked about ideas and their impact, but where does all this stuff actually happen? Not just in thin air, right? So for our next section, let's talk about the words for the places, the people, and the official actions that are all part of this engine of progress. You'll often find that big changes are concentrated in one central place. We call that place a hub. It's the center of a particular activity. You know, like Silicon Valley is a famous technology hub, or how London is a global financial hub. It's basically ground zero for where the action is. And what do you find in these hubs? People, of course. And a slightly more formal, more academic word for someone who lives in a place is a dweller. So you might talk about city dwellers or urban dwellers. It's just a nice alternative to resident or inhabitant.
All right, with all this change and disruption happening, things can get chaotic. So society needs rules to keep everything in order. And that's where the verb legislate comes in. To legislate is simply to make laws. It's what governments and officials do to manage all this progress. And the result of legislating? Well, that's the law itself, which we call legislation.
All right, you've collected a whole bunch of awesome individual words, but to really build something impressive, you need to know how to put them together. That's what this section is all about, powering up your language with some killer expressions.
Seriously, look at this table. These expressions are like cheat codes for sounding more academic and fluent. Instead of saying something simple like, it made it possible, you can say, it paved the way for. Instead of it's already started, you say, it's well underway. See the difference? Pose challenges, be backed by, put strain on. These are the phrases that will really make your writing and speaking stand out. I'd pause here and really let these sink in.
Okay, let's wrap this all up and put your new vocabulary to the test. Here's a final challenge for you. Read this question. How would you describe a disruptive technology that could render an entire industry obsolete and pose challenges for city dwellers? Try to build a sentence or two using the words we've gone over today. This is how you go from just recognizing these words to actually owning them. Give it a shot.